like I was grappling a bit with just sort of getting whatever I can done, but unfortunately, there's a lot to do in the whole global resistance thing. So I've just been taking my time to sort of lay out as much as I can. So I'm going to keep on going, just laying out sort of all the core mechanics that I'm going to work for. So I can sort of make this into almost a design document, but I prefer to plan on this. This is the kind of work I do. A lot to do in the whole global resistance thing. So just been taking my time to. Anyway, let us have a look. See where we're at. So I've just been laying out what I'm going to be doing for strategy assets and that kind of thing. Feel free to read if you want, but I am going to carry on. So I've looked at waypoints, strategy asset basics, and strategy assets. Capacity for squads. So squads, like I'm sort of trying to figure out the way in which strategy assets hold on to units, and essentially what I sort of want to do is like there's reserves and then squads, and the idea is each squad, you would define the makeup of squads. So yeah, let's start there. So configuration. So the idea of defining squads is you can have something sort of like, okay, squad equals name, let's say a shield bearer squad, and then the idea is you would sort of set up a bunch of ideal compositions. So let's say, and this is obviously pseudocode to a degree, but let's just say that we've got one advent trooper, another one. No, we don't. Shield bearer, and maybe let's say that it's always going to come with an officer. And the idea is like the enemy always deploys. The enemy would always deploy squads, but it would always create these squads from a list of reserves. And the idea is the reserves would be sort of just the amorphous blob of units and that kind of thing. But that way, the pods, rather than just sort of pulling out the units in sort of a mishmash, the pods would always come out in sort of they'd make sense. They'd be something that the enemy would want to use rather than just be stuck with like all snipers or something like that. I mean, if we ever ended up doing some sort of compositions like that. And that's more of a chore. So yeah, I'm setting up chores. Chores are basically things that work in the background, and the idea is things that work in the foreground will become features. So things that users actually interact with, or the players actually interact with, they become that other side of things. So in addition to that, so strategy assets, keep track of existing reserve units. So reserve units are sort of kept as low-fi as possible, so as to like they're part of squads. They're not unique in any way. So reserves sort of looks like essentially it'll be an array. I won't use. There's no real literal syntax for arrays in Unreal Script, so I'm not going to bother with that. But arrays would sort of look like this sort of struct. So So a reserve count would have something like Advent Trooper M1, something like that, and it would say that there's 50 of them. So that way, like, it doesn't sort of have this storage ballooning out. And the idea is this reserve, like all these reserves, are what are used to create squads, ideally. And the squads are only created when they're needed. And only when it's possible to actually create that squad, so to speak. Capitan, that'll do. So reserve units can't be deployed or moved. They must be assigned to a squad before they can. So they're almost like inventory more than anything. Take part in battle. So that way anything that sort of doesn't fit into a nice composition sort of lives there, and when, say, squads like they go for a fight or something like that, rather than going straight back to being a squad, it would either try to replenish the squad and turn it into a whole squad again, or it will dissolve the squad, turn it into reserves, and that way it can sort of do what it needs to do. So that actually leaves one last thing, which is reserve uniques. So the idea is maybe we have some sort of alien unit which bears tracking not as a template, so not just as a string, but as a full game state. So that might be, say, an alien ruler or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't imagine we end up with them in there very often, so I might just ignore the concept of reserve uniques for now, and go from there. Just give me a moment. Okie dokie. So yeah, this concept of reserves sort of sits back there, and then so squads sort of get constructed on a need basis. Maybe they just get always constructed. I haven't really, to be honest, decided that, but I do know that squads will be used to populate maps, and that's actually another thing I want to sort of have a poke around at. So I might take a moment to have a look at some code. My keyboard shortcuts, they do not work. No, there they go. All right. So I'm trying to figure out basically how pods get created, because unfortunately, so spawning pods is a native function. So if we're to spawn a pod ourselves, we sort of have to do the work ourselves. We can sort of take some ideas of what needs to come out of that process. So we need to create an XG AI group for the looks of it. And hopefully we can replicate everything from native, because otherwise we're kind of out of luck. You can create units just fine, but what I want to do is try and create them as a... I want to try and create them as a pod. And I think part of the information for that sort of comes out of the AI reinforcement spawner. So the spawn reinforcement process sort of happens here. So we can sort of see maybe that we can use this information here. This on spawn reinforcements complete might not be right. It's more like spawn reinforcements. So this one relies on spawn pod at location, and then it tries to use information from spawned group, like it gets some unit IDs from it. So I have some feeling that, like, if we're going to be using create unit to create a unit, we get a state reference back, and then we have to create an XGAI group, and we also need to create a game state AI group, I believe. Yeah. So this one determines a bunch of these things. I'm not sure how much of an effect these have. But essentially what I'm hoping for, because like I've tried using create unit thus far, and the main thing that it misses is it only, so each sort of unit will activate as one. So you end up with this case where it's like, all right, so this unit activates, this unit activates, this unit activates, and they all have their own separate pod activating animation and all that. So they're clearly treated as individuals, and we want to try and find a way to have it not like that. But at the very least, they seem initialized correctly. Anyway, going back to planning. Alrighty. So yeah, this is sort of to do with mission generation mechanics. I might move this. So yeah, spawn garrison for tactical mission based on squads currently at the mission strategy site. And the spawn pods based on an arbitrary mix of character templates and game state units. And this is, as I said, it's all hidden under native code, so there's some investigation required. It's kind of an unknown at this point. But either way, that's sort of that sort of thing. Anyway, some other mission generation mechanics we'll need to look into. Ability to generate missions that do not make use of the loadout screen in any way. Instead, they automatically populate based on a friendly presence at the area of operation. So what this essentially means is eventually we will have like resistance strategy assets moving around the map, and when they collide with an advent patrol or something like that, a fight may break out. Depending on the intelligence game, you might have the option to just not like pass them by, but you might get ambushed as well. There's a range of things that could happen. But essentially what we want to do is we want to spawn a mission, a combat mission, and we want to spawn it with a locked loadout of people. So that means no Avenger screen, essentially just go straight to a load screen and then spawn the map, which should be possible, but what we're going to have to look at is the scope of battle data, and in fact we might have a look at that code for a little bit. So where is mission spawning? So I might just look at tactical game rule set to start off with. So tactical game rule set is literally the start of the world. So if we're going to look at anywhere which is like starting the battle, let me find the event. Start state initialize squads. Is that it? Well, that's where the XCOM units list comes from, but I don't think that's where it gets positioned. Load map, add character streaming, cinematic maps. Alright, begin tactical play. Let's have a look. I'm in the right place. Create tactical game. This is more like it. So this is where the aliens get spawned. Right here. And then there's spawn of cosmetic units. Not really our bag. What I'm really looking for is our own troops, XCOM troops. So spawning AIs happens there. And unit abilities, initialize squads. So yeah, that's not really important. It's more like the begin method, I think. There we go. So here's all the dropship stuff. So luckily, like, I mean, tactical rule set rules out some other mods, but it looks like we're gonna have to override it to really get this job done, because we're gonna build the sort of units from some other place. Or maybe it's just how we spawn the mission. Actually, it's probably not entirely true. So how has it come in? Trying to remember how I did mission spawning. I might just bring up Wavecom, because that's how I spawn the mission there. So yeah, I overrode XG strategy to do my own strategy. Prepare tactical battle, launch tactical battle. Yeah, that's the one. Prepare tactical battle. There's the HCOM HQ, but where is the units? And the thing that might be a bit annoying is if, say, the XCOM squad, the actual units, is sort of like it's always going to be pulled from the loadout screen, or at least like that defined squad is sort of always saved there. But hopefully not. We'll see. This looks okay. Tech controlling player. Yeah, okay. So this sort of stuff is useful. So that all gets sent to the start state for the tactical world. So maybe that's enough. So yeah, hopefully we can do a bit of work in terms of setting up that tactical battle properly here. Still, it's annoying because there's a bunch of things that are hidden underneath in native code, or at least like it's just sort of like it weaves in and out of native code for certain things that kind of confuses me at times. I guess we'll get there. Might have a look at battle data as well while we're having a look at these things. Battle data is supposed to have a wealth of information, as you can see through here, and all this information is sort of representing something in terms of the state of the mission. Final. Active mission. Map data. Where does that come from? Stored map data. Yeah, no, I've come to that assumption. Like I've done some gnarly stuff with tactical, like in terms of like the recovery turn system and wavecom and just forcing that along. But a lot of that was just trying to sort of just contort the structure of the game, such that I didn't have to tinker too much in exactly how it works. But like my long term plans with sort of this particular like with this particular mod, I want to be able to generate mission objectives. I want to be able to generate mission data. Basically none of it's going to happen unless I can sort of figure out all of the things that I should be able to do. Where's the struct for stored map data? 14. Right. Active mission. It's a mission definition. Anyway. Local mission definition. XG game data, could I? Mission name. Acquired plot objective tags. Yeah, standard stuff. Schedules. Objectives. Yeah. The mission game states do a lot. Hopefully, what could I do? I gotta look at these mission objective definition. I mean, hopefully a lot of these structs can potentially be just generated. I mean, config is good and all that, but I want some dynamism eventually. A lot of things happen off mission site, but that's interesting that mission site adventure defense is a thing, because that means that you can have more than one type of mission. I mean, I've already overridden mission states for one thing, but maybe I don't even have to do that. Because yeah, this is interesting because this is like a forced interaction. So yeah, you're just forced to take part in this one. And one thing that could happen is we could just cache for just creating a map to hang out, creating a map. What am I trying to say? If you just create a squad, say you've got this random encounter that you've just run into, we could just cache the existing squad, because I reckon that's XCOM headquarters stores that. Where's my squad? Maybe not. Loadout UI. Maybe squad select. Is there? Yeah, squad select. And this probably does stuff with headquarters XCOM. Yeah, so yeah, it has a thing called .squad. That's right. Probably could have found that with a search, but anyway. Squad. Actually, I might do a search on squad if that's the variable that feeds it, because maybe squad is the right word to hit in sort of a loadout session. I mean, it all might happen in native code, but I don't know. Man, a lot of hits on squad, unfortunately. Maybe you want to go to the X2 code. Oh, hello. Set squad to 0. When does it do that? Set units for matinee. Interesting. Is that at the end? Create challenge game. Oh, okay. Doesn't matter. End battle. So yeah, squad is XCOM HQ is definitely where you want most of the information to come from, by the looks of it. Clean up. Okay. I might move on from that for now. Should be possible, but just have to go from there. Alright, anyway, I'm going to keep on going. So, yeah, spawn garrison for tactical missions based on squads currently at the mission site strategy asset, and spawn pods based on an arbitrary mix of character templates and game state units. If we can do that, then we've got some value there. The next thing is to calculate reinforcement projection. And I guess that comes back to being able to detect reinforcement protection from Advent Economy. Alright, so but then maybe eventually you want the resistance to be able to do it too, because they would be providing reinforcement projection locally and stuff like that. And that's sort of how a large scale battle is going to happen too. Like if you've got, say, 2 large squads and they're 50 units each, you can't have 50 units each enter the battle straight away. So instead, rather than having that 50 on 50 sort of unit occurrence happen, you would have this sort of the vanguard fight, and then while the vanguard is still fighting, then both squads have local reinforcement projection. So the next sort of 10 come in, and the next 10 come in, and I mean it'd still probably murder a lot of older systems, but essentially that's sort of where that would be going. So anyway, that's a lot of words. Reinforcement projection is, I guess, a core mechanic then. I'm just going to throw in some tags. So there's this concept of economy, and then battle, and then intelligence. And all of these sort of come together. And also movement is another aspect of it. Econ. Alright. Okay, movement's a thing. Alright, so at the start of each battle, or at least on any battle, sort of there needs to be a calculation that so on a battle, anytime a mission is instigated at an area of operation, a level of tactical strength must be calculated. Tactical strength must be calculated. Alright, and let's have a think about what that precisely means. So I'm thinking that when you're trying to figure out the tactical, like the local tactical strength, you've got a garrison slash vanguard. So the instigators of the attack, the ones who are arriving, have a vanguard, or rather, mobile squads have vanguards and placed squads at a static strategy asset have garrisons. And then what do we do with that information? So the garrison and the vanguard are the ones that are spawned on site, or spawned immediately. They are in the battle immediately. So vanguard and garrison limited, but immediately on the battlefield. And how that gets laid out depends on sort of the tactical footing. So, like if it was an ambush, potentially the vanguard for one is in the middle of the map, and then the vanguard for the other squad surrounds them. Or maybe it's is it in placement, and like the garrison's in the center, the vanguard arrives from the outside. But either way, so the vanguard and the garrison, vanguard slash garrison get calculated, and then after that you have, put a heading on that. Have the vanguard and the garrison, and then you have the reinforcement potential. So local reinforcement potential. So local reinforcements are essentially on site. They're what's the right way to say this? Yeah, they're local. They're they come from the same sort of strategy asset that's actually on site. So if two platoons run into each other, they got a vanguard each, and then they've got local reinforcement potential that just comes from the back. And then there's also outside there's also projected, that's my word, projected reinforcement potential. So that's where it gets a little tricky, but essentially what you're doing is you're looking for strategy assets around the area that have the ability to project their reinforcers into the space. And the most obvious case, so the example of that is, example of local is e.g. leftover local troops from the strategy asset. And then projected reinforcement potential comes from mainly advanced transport troop bases. So the interesting thing about this, I guess, is if this swings both ways, eventually there might be large scale fights that also involve reinforcements from the resistance side. Or you've, say, got a resistance camp, and there's a vanguard, a garrison, and then both sides have at it. So maybe like if you choose to stand and fight, you could just choose to evacuate, in which case like the vanguard holds them back while everyone runs away, or you could choose to fight it out, in which case the local reinforcements will keep on reinforcing while the enemy, their vanguard, hits, and then all their local reinforcements keep on coming in. So I guess the key is if we can calculate that, then we can easily just time drip feed them in, and we can either throttle it based on the amount of troops that are on the field. We could maybe, like, essentially I just want it to be like, there is the scope for lots and lots of things to happen on the battlefield. So I want life to be a bit cheaper than it is in XCOM 2, because I think it'll be more interesting that way. But yeah, if you've got that garrison and that vanguard and that reinforcement potential, then you can essentially spawn the entirety of the mission and understand how that whole thing's going to come together. I think. Maybe. And yeah, later, sorry, I just looked at the chat. But yes, I'm going to look at reinforcements and drop unit. I mean, that's essentially where I'm going to be taking the information from. But the thing is when you just, like, I don't want to spawn encounters. And that's, like, if I can, I would like to avoid spawning encounters, because you have to declare them by name. And because you have to declare them by name, you don't have the flexibility to say, all right, I want this thing to spawn here. Or rather, you can spawn an individual unit, but you want them all to behave as sort of a group. But anyway, that's a thing I'm going to be looking into. Alright, anyway, that's a whole lot of talking for one card. Anytime a mission is instigated at an area of operation, tactical strength must be calculated. And potentially that'll also become... so this is a battle setup, sort of. Alright, so this comes to mission generation. So spawn pods, spawn garrison for tactical missions. Setup. Listener for both sides. With a queue of potential reinforcements available to spawn on the battlefield. Anyway, I think that's enough talking about that stuff. So, like Geoscape core mechanics, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in terms of like squads, existing units, production cycles, and that kind of thing. And then we have the advent economy that sort of is a part of that system. So, the advent economy. What do we got? We've got cities. So advent occupied cities. Generate supplies from supply centers. And these are a whole bunch of gameplay facing features. So advent occupied cities should generate bodies. So that's a new item type from Gene Clinics. Bodies as new item type. So this is sort of fleshing out the advent economy. So essentially we have bodies, we have vials. So bodies go to black sites turn the bodies into vials, vials go to avatar facilities, and then avatar facilities create Doom. And that's the overall, that's how you end up with a win or a loss, is based on whether you can clear out all the avatar facilities and shut down this advent economy. I can't imagine the win state will be clearing out the map as a whole. I think that might be a bit too much, but maybe we can make that customizable. We can say, all right, so once advent presence is down to 25% of the planet, then you win. Or maybe if you're a completionist, you want advent presence to be down to 10% or even more than that. Pardon me. Hang on, I think we've got one more coming. Oh no, all good. Alright, so either way, bodies the new item type, files the new item type. Advent occupied cities should generate bodies from gene clinics. Okay, generate supplies from supply centers. Alright, next off. Advent occupied cities should send bodies to black sites. Black sites should produce files from bodies. E.g. input 100 bodies. Output 1 vial. Time taken or duration 1 week. Juice of midshipman. Just squeeze them. Anyway, so that's sort of going on. So Geoscape core mechanic is you can determine production capabilities for a strategy asset and input-output duration. So black sites should produce files from bodies. Cool. All right. Next up, black sites. Black convoys. All right. So black sites should send files to avatar facilities via convoys. And then finally, avatar facilities turn and this is actually an interesting one, because what we could do is say that the avatar project, so let's say we give the aliens an interesting choice where if you're putting a lot of pressure onto them, if you're, say, putting a lot of pressure onto... Thanks for the comment there, Des Fox. I'm just streaming just because, I don't know, I want to. And maybe people will see what I'm doing. But I do appreciate hearing your words. It's going to take a long time to get through this project, so I may as well be open and transparent about it and actually show my work, so to speak. Anyway, carrying on. So, avatar facilities. Like, what they could do is they could just, like, create Doom and that's it. But I think it might be interesting if each sort of like Doom canister or avatar thing or whatever, like you can like they can either hold on to it and improve the Doom tracker, or they can spend it and turn it into avatars to throw at you. I think that's an interesting choice because it's like, okay, if you put enough pressure on the aliens, you can actually delay the Doom timer, even if you're not actually hitting the facilities, because they're worried about you stopping them, so they create avatars. I think that might work really well. So, let's say avatars turn vials. Should produce let's call them avatar conduits. I don't know. Avatar conduits from vials. E.g., 10 vials, 1 avatar conduit. 2 weeks, something like that. Maybe they have to have four Avi conduits or something like that to create Doom. I think one for one is probably too much. Anyway, so it should produce avatar conduits from Vile. So that avatar conduits as an item. Avatar conduits are held in inventory to produce Doom, or they can be spent to create avatar units. Okie dokie, so that's the sort of the golden path for the avatar for the advent. But in addition to that, what we're going to have is we need ways for them to defend themselves. So essentially we have troops being created, and I want to have some sort of muddy grey area in there as well. So essentially cities, like, there should be some level of volunteering from the local populace, and this is like a sort of a standard guerrilla thing anyway. It's like sort of standard counter-insurgent sort of approaches is to really get the locals on side with you. You don't just like sort of say, listen, obey, sit down, shut up, because that doesn't actually work. So counter-insurgent sort of philosophy and stuff like that is about sort of getting the locals to not like the insurgents too, and that's not just through propaganda but through actual effort and not blowing up their houses and stuff like that. So it would make sense that there are advent sort of volunteers and that kind of thing, but even anyway, that's beside the point. Let's say avatar forges, advent forges are strategy assets that can be placed, constructed. So they're just a thing. And then advent forges produce troops from supplies. E.g. 100 supplies, 20 advent troopers. Or maybe some other composition. I would think that I would try and aim for some sort of default composition that comes out of the flow. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah, have we got advent? Yeah, generate supplies from supply centers. Right. Advent Forge produces troops from supplies. And then there's this sort of balancing act where at this point sort of Advent needs to coordinate all of its resources because it needs to build troops, and then where does it send those troops? So I really don't know how to approach that sort of artificial intelligence. It's never something I've done, so to be honest, I'm trying to think of it more like, okay, there's going to be some priorities, and maybe like each region understands what it needs and can make requests for it and stuff like that. And all of that is based on just some arbitrary numbers or levers, like stuff like XCOM activity. For like, if the XCOM activity is this, you should have this many troops or something like that. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about it too much just yet, because it's a big problem, but it will eventually be something I run into a lot. Let's keep on going with the board gamey sort of stuff. So Advent Forges can turn low-level troops into elites. So that's another production cycle where the input is, say, 10 Advent Troopers, and the output is 10 Advanced Advent Troopers. And you get a duration of 1 week or something like that. Right. So that's forges. They're pretty simple. So Advent troop transport bases. Strategy assets that can be placed / constructed. Alright, Advent transport. I'll just call them ATT bases. ATT bases. Can accept a number of troops and then apply, which then become part of projected reinforcement potential for any nearby missions. So essentially all that's saying is that there's going to be a ring around each ATT base, and any of the troops that are in that base then become the projection potential. And I guess that'll get capped in some way, shape or form based on the amount of, like, I guess, ATTs that particular base has got, but that's sort of an abstraction I'll probably avoid to start off with. So instead it'll just be more like, got troops, got reinforcement potential, done. Don't even worry about it. Can house a number of squads. Okie dokie. Right. So that's ATT bases, that's their purpose. We also have guard posts. Are fixed places which can be garrisoned. Slightly. And by slightly I mean like it'll have enough for a squad, but you can probably hit it and run. Maybe loot it a bit, that kind of thing. And the guard posts are also sort of the fixed nodes for the road system. And part of the idea of this is to sort of have less sort of more inconsequential missions, I think. Like not inconsequential, but rather just not have every mission need to be won. So you have these small missions where you're like, all right, I'm just going to raid this guard post, sort of like Metal Gear Solid, I guess, in a way. Raid this guard post, hit it, get some of its get some of its materials or maybe some intelligence from it, I don't know, and then run. And the idea is that way, like, there's always going to be weak spots somewhere because Advent can't have 100% coverage. And the idea is for you, like, to embrace that and say, all right, so we're going to hit all these different places and try and take them apart. Anyway, what else in the Advent economy? All right, so here's some important concepts. Like Advent AI will have a region command system which tracks the state of the region and how it should allocate resources. So what do I mean like this? So we have this AI and it's going to be tracking a bunch of things. So by a bunch of things, let's have a think about what those bunch of things could be. Got this amount of XCOM activity. Resistance activity. They're actually two separate entities in my concept of the game. Morale level. And all of this sort of comes up to an advent alert level, which is sort of a function of the XCOM and resistance activity. So if everyone's making a ruckus, breaking things, all that sort of good stuff, then hopefully it will use this information to then say, all right, I need more patrols out there, or like intelligence level and that kind of thing. And we'll talk more about that in the intelligence game. But anyway. So let's go squads. Forges and ATT bases can dispatch squads to where they're needed. Even full transfers requested by outside regions. Okay, and we have one more concept that we haven't fully looked at yet, which is the Cygate. Cygates can be placed, constructed, where did I put this stuff about construction? Yeah, strategy assets that can be placed and constructed. So sort of like that, the Cygate that showed up in the Codex mission. I want Cygates to exist, and their purpose within the overall economy. Cygates can produce aliens with no inputs, only duration. And Cygates can produce supplies with no inputs, only duration. So the whole point of the Cygate is that's like their off-world reinforcement, the colonizers, providing their help from aboard. So in a way, they help them, like that's where their big guns come from. Sectopods are technically their big guns, and we'll probably do them on the Forge. But like in terms of like gatekeepers, like all their special units, other than the Avatar, which will come from Avatar facilities, will come out of the Cygate, and they'll have an impetus to build those. But if you want to cut off those special units, you can do that with Cygates and just sort of have yourself fighting the standard army. Potentially those Cygates can even bring in elites, the kind of aliens that will really mess things up. Potentially they can provide some reinforcement potential. Maybe like we make believe that the Cygate can sort of push out those aliens in a certain way, and just put them on site if the Cygate's close enough. But more likely to be used as sort of like a general reinforcement factory more than anything. Alright. So I think that's... there might be more that I need to talk about with the Advent economy, but that probably makes sense for a starting point. Resistance economy. This can be exhausting, but in a way, like this brain dump stuff, but it's kind of really liberating as well, because it allows you to sort of look at the whole project and maybe think it's not so bad after all. Even though like some of these things might be really hard to put together, by listing it out, it does stop me from sort of like my head going in all these different locations. So a resistance havens can strategy assets that can be placed, constructed, or generated from completing monument destruction mission. So that's the thing that I've already sort of tested out. Is basically like you run in, you blow up the monument, and you don't really achieve much, but you do sort of rally. Like you wake up the local resistance cell. Like they're like, hey, like we'll make contact and all that sort of thing. So again, this is sort of in keeping with like the XCOM. XCOM is a separate entity from the resistance. So the way this sort of is meant to play out, I guess, in practice, is XCOM gives resistance instructions, possibly material aid, possibly takes recruits from there, but other than that, XCOM does not officially. XCOM isn't them. They can do things independently. They can also bug out and go to another country and it'll all be fine because the resistance can look after itself potentially, because XCOM is its own entity and you always control XCOM. You don't control the whole resistance, and potentially that'll keep some of the micromanagement down potentially. Anyway, this is the one I've wrestled with as well a lot, like what's the right scope, because the resistance is Haven. You could go a long way. You could basically go full Metal Gear Mother Base with it, which I sort of want to do eventually, but maybe that's a bit too complicated for a first pass. So let's think about what are the basics that we need. Resistance havens can produce recruits for recruitment from local cities. So that's sort of looking like inputs, none, outputs. Say 5 rookies, let's keep it simple, per week. That's actually going to be a bit small if all that war breaks out, so let's go 10 rookies. Okay, like I really feel like resistance presence is sort of important. Like we don't, like the resistance doesn't just sit on its hands and get money for existing, right? And it doesn't even get troops for just existing. So how does this stuff actually play out? And my opinion is the way this plays out is you send squads out, they go on a mission, and then they come back. So let's actually pull this back. Can dispatch squads on a schedule for routine missions. So these routine missions will have various they'll have a number of squad members performing the mission and maybe some vehicles and equipment, but let's just not worry about the vehicles and equipment just yet. And they achieve a certain thing. So those routine missions. So resistance mission. Send squads to cities to recruit and bring back soldiers. Send squads to cities to scavenge, steal supplies. So logistics mission. What's next? So we could have some local concept of healing and stuff like that, but let's just sort of skip over that for now. Resistance mission. And this is an economy, then this sort of comes into the intelligence game. So maybe I'll save talking about it until I get to the intelligence game. What more can it be done locally? Because what I also want is like, you want to invest in your bases, so you want to build them up, you want to be producing equipment. So can build support structures when it has amassed adequate personnel and inventory. Resistance haven structure. We'll call it a workshop. Turns supplies into equipment. So it probably has some sort of input, output, and maybe some settings so you can choose what it's actually producing. So resistance haven structure. Kill house. Trains up garrison soldiers. Ranking them up over time. What else can we do? Yeah, I think those will do just for economy concerns right now. Resistance haven. Resistance havens can dispatch convoys to other havens. Filled with supplies. Maybe they can do like small amounts of troop transfer and stuff like that, but they'd obviously their movements be much more limited than sort of Advent's economy. So, like Advent's sending all sorts of things around, and it should be able to freely do so because it's got the win, got the position to do so. All right. So what is XCOM's participation? XCOM, and by XCOM it's partially like the Avenger, can visit resistance havens and procure supplies plus recruits. And I think this probably bears to be said. So for the resistance economy, introduce lower level resistance fighter class for recruits. So what I'm thinking there is essentially like resistance, you have fighter, blitz. So you have rookie through to colonel. It'll be a bad name, but let's just go with it. So, and then we have elite, rookie to colonel. So elite. So yeah, resistance fighter and then the resistance elite. And essentially that gives you sort of 18, 16? Anyway, like a bunch of ranks to work with, and then you have XCOM operatives. So, I mean, ideally, you pull Resistance elites into XCOM later in their stage, and you'll get much stronger operatives as a result. Um, and like the ramping of the skills, we'll probably have to figure out to make work. But the idea is I just want a lower ceiling sort of room to work with. But by the same token, this will be a much more, in my opinion, this will be a much more gradual sort of more gradual stat and skill build to avoid relying on A squads too much. The idea is there should be lots of death, lots of carnage, and in the end of the day, you've still got to have strong troops to do it. Sorry, you've still got to have like a very deep roster to be able to get away with it. Anyway, Geoscape intelligence game. This is sort of like, so we've got an economy, we've got stuff to work with there, and what we want to do with that economy is we want to make it so that you can build out, like, have a fog of war in the game. So you've got the whole geoscape in your view. You can see all the cities and all the guard posts because they're easy to find. A simple flyer over find them. But resistance havens, convoys, patrols, all of that stuff is hidden unless it's scouted directly or if it's if it's discovered, so to speak. And then you got tailors or something like that. So essentially, the concept of the intelligence game is every region has a local intelligence score for each team. I.e., distance equals 40, and say advent equals 20. Local intelligence is improved by local intelligence is improved by presence in the so local intelligence is passively actively improved by strategy assets within the region. So by this I mean certain strategy assets have a capacity to give a boost to local intelligence. So let's say, for instance, resistance mission. Send a squad out to a city to permanently set up and man a data relay, data interception. So that data interception post allows them to build up their local intelligence score. And what else have we got? And this is one of the other things, a sort of economy, sort of intelligence. So alien relays allow, so you might have some sort of cap on the amount of squads that you're allowed to have on the field. Mobile, certain strategy assets must be supported by some level of communication in the field. This effectively caps the amount of squads that can be moving on the geoscape by how much communication is in place. So, Advent can construct alien relays in cities to boost their communication cap, allowing them to field patrols. Alright, the Resistance can construct listening posts. Higher number of missions on the field, on the geoscape. So those missions could be scouting patrols, like a bunch of different things. So essentially, like if you want to discover things, there are sort of there are a couple of different ways you can do it. So patrols and resistance missions moving on the geoscape have a scouting radius, which is very limited in the terms of the world map. It's quite very small, and have a scouting radius. Scouting radius and a perception score. And profile score. Alright, so the way I want this to interact is whenever two assets come into contact and they don't know about each other at that point. So if if one team's already scouted the other, they're always going to get the jump on them. But if they don't know each other and they run into each other, then essentially a roll takes place. So what that roll is essentially, so perception can be high, medium, or low, and profile can be high, medium, or low. So small squads, low profile, high perception. Garrisons, high profile, low perception. Massive platoons, high profile, low perception. Small mission, medium profile, let's say large squad, low profile, medium profile, medium perception. And essentially what that is going to mean is, and we'll get to that in a moment actually. So when strategy the assets collide, in fact it's probably going to be better for me to say with this one, strategy assets on the geoscape are unaware of one another overlap scouting radius when strategy assets scouting radius overlaps. And realistically, what this probably means is that both sides always have identical scouting radiuses, and they just run into each other. And maybe there's some exceptions to this, like maybe some aircraft sort of comes into the game eventually, like UFOs or something like that, and that can spot. But anyway, scouting radius overlaps. When strategy assets scouting radius overlaps, the two profiles and perception are compared to determine which has the initiative. So, to choose what to do next. So let's go into some examples for that. So you've got ambush, potential outcomes. And what else could we do? We could go the other. Ambush or withdraw. They're the main ones. Discovered each other at distance. So I think one way to do this is maybe like if two low profile, high perception teams run into each other, they just literally run into each other, and like combat's inevitable. But if two large scale things where they're even, but they're always gonna they're on even footing. So what's going to happen is they're probably going to end up with the choice to, like, both sides have to either engage or can choose to withdraw or engage. Both must agree to engage for combat to start. And then potentially it's a movement check. So if one can move faster than the other, then they can force the issue or something like that. But there's some just potential outcomes. So yeah, that's the direct scouting. So that's why you might set a bunch of things out on the space. But then there's also the local interception score. So interception posts improve the local intelligence score. So local patrols and contribute geoscape patrols, which can both be like vent and resistance. So you contribute to their respective sides' local intelligence score. So the idea is like if you one way to discover things is you just get a whole lot of boots on the ground and you set them up and you do your thing. Their respective sides' local intelligence score. And the idea is that intelligence score that's like sort of it's this continuous roll that happens, say, every week. So local intelligence is daily compared be right back. One moment, and then I'll finish this for about local intelligence and how it all contributes. Alrighty, what do we do with this? So local intelligence is regularly rolled against undiscovered facilities undiscovered facilities and assets. High if the roll plus the intelligence score is high enough to reach a discovery threshold. So that's essentially the idea. Is local intelligence regularly rolled against undiscovered facilities and assets, and if the roll is high enough to reach a discovery threshold, that should be fairly low. So the idea is like maybe if you've got like let's pick some arbitrary numbers. Say you've got like 50% local intelligence score, then that means you will on average discover like when the probabilities all weigh out, you'll probably discover an avatar facility in about 4 weeks or something like that. And that's just because you're doing the roll again and again and again. And you have no control over that. Obviously, you don't know what these facilities are, but in the background, the game's always like running a roll, say every day or something like that. And the algorithm for that will need to be worked out. So, like a few more ways in which the intelligence game can play out. So, SCOM can embed operatives within cities to gain intelligence, to boost the local intelligence. So we could say like there's going to be basic missions. So I think I worked it out somewhere like there's passive, low risk of discovery, some intel gain, and there's active, higher risk of discovery, but can discover concrete information. So that would be like they get extracted with an advent data pad or something like that, something sensitive, I think. Yeah. I think at this point I'm gonna sit on this for now. I want to sort of do something practical, not spend the whole stream just parroting on about this board. This is public, by the way. This URL. Chuck it in the description. I can't really do a description. There you go. It's in the chat. Go nuts. Yeah, that's sort of like it's publicly available, so you can have a look at the board. Even join in and maybe do some commenting and stuff like that. I think there's a way you can do that. Anyway, that's sort of going to be my my board there, and it'll give me a way to look around all the stuff I'm doing. I really like this setup. It's sort of like Trello, but more structure, more analytics once you sort of get it all set up. And I use it for my personal project. My business projects as well. So it's not a bad way to work. Anyway, let's close that up and let's do some stuff with global resistance. What are we looking for? Global resistance. And one thing I'm going to do is missions.ini. I'm going to get an empty schedule in here. You've got all these schedules. What do we got? Global resistance. Reinforcement missions is the one I want. Actually, not even that's the one I want. Give me config. That's the one. Even that's not going to get it for me. I need another window. Config. Alright. Missions.ini. Schedule. go to default schedules. Default missions. .ini schedule. Alright, let's take that one as standard. Looks like the distance grows a bit. Yeah. Keep the distance high, and then we'll remove all the pre-placed encounters. So let's jump over to XCOM missions here. And what we're going to do is add ourselves one mission schedule. Global resistance. empty schedule. So min required alert level, basically I'm going to make it 0, 1000, so make it the absolute maxed out. And then we're going to remove all the pre-placed encounters. Okie dokie. So now I can do gr empty schedule for all of these. Where's my typing? Get rid of you, get rid of you. Oh wait, I am completely wrong. That is not my one. This one's my one. So yeah, gr empty schedule here. Chuck him here. Chuck him here. Let's chuck difficulty in there equals 1. Not that it matters. I don't think it should matter. Anyway, kill all that. Alright, so that's Black Site, Gene Clinic, Advent Monument, but not Avatar Facility. Oh yeah, because that mission family is just straight up sabotage. So, what we'll need to do is cancel out the sabotage mission type. Alright, sabotage. Sabotage CC is the first non-tutorial mission. And then sabotage facility schedules. These are the schedules. I don't care about the schedules. I care about this mission here. Yep. So what we're going to do. Yeah, so they're not spawned arbitrarily. That's the objective, RoboJumper. So instead of all that, we're going to go for an empty schedule. I think all of that other stuff should be fine. That's just clearing the config and then adding that in. Hopefully I didn't put any typos in. Right. Sorry, just give me one moment. I'm just going to open up ModBuddy. The unfortunate reality is that now I have to open this thing with what's it called, with ModBuddy to do anything. Sorry, with administrator set. Otherwise, it always crashes on me, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Right. So what I'm interested in. Sorry, give me one moment. I am interested in using XGAI group. Or setting up XGAI group, because we have reinforcement spawner. Good catch. Alright, reinforcement spawn. So yeah, spawned group that comes out is an XGII group. So like I have this suspicion that if I'm gonna create a bunch of units and create them as a squad, I need to initialize them. Sorry. Alright, so what do I do with this information? Spawn manager. So I want to, like, the spawn manager does some things for me, but not everything. And I need to figure out where that all sort of lies together. So on spawn raw reinforcements complete, a bunch of stuff happens as well. This is interesting. If this group isn't starting out scampering. Here we go. So AI group state. That's XCOM game state AI group. But then we also need possibly an XG AI group as well. Where am I? I'm in the wrong spot. Yeah, okay. AI group state. Just trying to find where that group state came from. Oh wait, sorry. Reinforcing unit. Instigating unit. Visible units. So visible units is just a check to see which ones are visible right now. Yeah, I see. Yeah, so that's sort of a, hey, if one of them works, they see a spotted unit, they reflexively work. Otherwise, you set up a group, and the word group there, I'm pretty sure, is an AI group. Yes, it is. Yeah, so we need to set up an XGIR group. And really all I'm trying to do here is just, I'm trying to fudge it so that I can make a pod activate. And I'll bring this out into something that's real down the track. Alright, group. Let's see if we can create one and make it work. Right, I know that all these things get created, so I really don't need to prove that point. I can do that with just an AI group. That's fine. Objective location. So reinforce location equals objective location. Sorry, I just got to set up some positioning better. Oops. So I'm just going to grab some stuff from reinforcement. What was it? Reinforcement missions. reinforcement mission logic dot UC. Go away. I don't want to give you all that. All right. So yeah, it's X or Y. Drop location is what I was going to do. Okay. Drop location. And then we'll go drop location dot X. I think the tile size is 92 in it. My bad. All right, 96. Drop location, and then we'll do that one more time, except we'll subtract. So hopefully they don't all land in the same space. Now, what I want to do is see. Oh man, I didn't even show you that. What was I doing? All right. So the next thing I want here is I want to be sort of doing stuff with XGII group. Like I want to generate an XGII group is I guess what I'm saying. So I've just got in another tab, I've got things going on, but hopefully we can get it all to work. Get group membership. Okay. So we've got a group there. I wonder if I can just start doing this. Yeah, start fleshing it out and see what happens. So we've got group, and that has our member XG unit. Ah, I see. When do we get an XG unit out of XCOM unit state? Can we? Can we get XG unit out of it? Find or create visualizer. Unit visualizer. Return unit visualizer. Okay, that's... So yeah, potentially after we've done create unit, sorry, I'm just looking at sort of what I've got available to me here on the other side. Create unit internal. I reckon find or create visualizer is the one. Yeah, this might crash things like a hill of beans, but we'll see how it goes. I'd really prefer not to have to do this, but I might have to get the AI to work. So group dot start unrevealed, b start unrevealed. Equals true. XCOM game state. AI group. XG AI group. And I'm doing a lot of this blind. I don't really understand it. I've just got to prod it and make it work, or try to make it work and see what happens to it. I think. Refresh members. Oh, okay, it can get the members alright if I populate the unit ID. Sorry, you won't see that on screen, but I'll sort it out in a moment. So rather than getting the visualizer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the group dot what's it called? MR unit IDs. Dot add item enemy dot object ID. And I'm going to do this a bunch of times. How do you spawn things, eh? Spawn. I wonder if I can find some sort of spawn in, what's it called? Game state unit in the visualizer. XG unit, create visualizer, game state. Maybe do a search. What am I looking for? XG AI group. Just any hint of XG AI group being constructed in a non-native fashion would be really, really handy right about now. That worked. Okay. 39. Okay, so it's not too bad. G. Where does AI group? For every unit. Squad location, get all enemies. Or if AI group. New spawn AI data. AI unit data game state added here. I think this is the one we're after. Get group object ID. Oh, XCOM game state unit data. That's interesting. Okay, so that's the bookkeeping that keeps track of them. Wonder if I'm going about this wrong. XG AI group game state unit turn update. So that's only mentioned once. Add group to move list. Okay. Game state unit. So what I want to do is I want to figure out how group membership is sort of decided. If I can do that, like get group membership. That's going to be easier to find if I put a space in front of it. There we go. All right. So get group membership. Looks for AI groups. So it's not stored on the thing itself. It's stored in AI groups. I might do a search for that function to see other examples of where it's used. So it's add new spawn AI data. Should be a fairly specific one. So, oh hello. When does that happen? Post create init. So it gets all done almost straight away. Perform AI update. Alright, spawn manager. Spawn manager. Does it do that? So create unit does a bunch of things. Add start state. Optional string character pool name. Never mind that stuff. Here we go. Post create init. Be using start. Perform AI update. Comes from here, I believe. Yes, it does. So create unit internal is it's something we can't play with, and it's true. So these groups are being built all the time. Which means it's got a group membership already. Yeah, it's got a group membership already. that we need to delete because it's being built a group just for it, and we need to, after it's done that, we need to destroy its bookkeeping. Oh, jeez, this is complicated. Yeah, I think messing around with XGAI group is a mistake because they've already got groups. So maybe I should just verify that first. Like literally just verify that it's got a group and then go from there. Alright. So get that group. Yep, I'll get that group and then go from there. Get group membership. Okay. And then AI group.uc. And I should be able to verify its members list. Yeah, let's do that. That'll get us closer to understanding what the hell's going on. So I'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. Keep that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And after each of these, I'm going to get an AI group equals enemy. That's a state object reference. So we go XCOM, game state, unit. I don't know if that'll work particularly well, but anyway, get group membership, and then use the start state to retrieve, and then log AI group number AI group dot object ID. Length AI group dot mr members dot length. Alright, and hopefully this will give us some information to work with. Let's verify wherever that compiles and then go from there. hopefully this builds. Probably going to wrap it up soon enough. Been yammering on for a good 2 hours now. To be honest, it helps me think though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Free errors, okay. No, I would not. Script versus, that one doesn't matter just yet. XCOM GameStay unit. Oh, is that wrong? Okay, group membership did return that. What the heck? I might have to get it from the start, from the state. XCOM game state.uc. Start state dot get game state for object ID enemy dot object ID. But I think with the create unit function, the other thing I want to do is maybe I want to provide a game state. Add to start state. Oh, add to start state is true, so it should be on there. So let's do that. See if it compiles. Should be quicker this time. This time it worked. Those errors were there, but they don't matter because nothing references them. Global resistance is on, good. Alright, finish loading, come on. Okie dokie. let's jump on over there. Kansa. Let's go. Cool. All right. So teleport to cursor. All right. Yep. So they still ain't no group. Yeah, here we go. So 3 AI groups got created, each of length 1. So realistically, what needs to happen is related AI groups need to be removed. Oh man. Okay, yeah, so we need to clear related AI groups. We then need to AI player data, and then we need to refresh them. Alright, let's make list. Let's have a look around. See what we missed. So XG AI group. So the spawn manager by default will kick off create unit internal will, oh wait, no, it's the other one. No, yeah, that's right. So this one triggers off the post create init, which triggers off the spawn data information. So this one here, XGAI player battle, add new spawn AI data using the new game state, and that's standard because create unit internal kicks that one off. Unless, of course, we create our own method which does all of these things. Which we may have to do. Yeah, we may have to do that. If all of this is made out of public stuff, then we could do that. So, create internal data. So create new implementation of spawn manager dot create unit and create unit internal. Then to do it all. Alright, so next up, we then need to build the AI information. So that is add new spawn. Add new spawn AI data. Is get AI player. So let's check that out now. Yeah, Robo Jumper, it might be a potential, but what I'm concerned about is the amount of bookkeeping that already gets done. Because you can see here we've got XCOM game state unit, then it creates an AI state, it registers it in its own register, the unit AI ID, group object ID from unit ID. Yeah, so it accesses AI player data state, so it's putting stuff into, like, it's adding stuff to all these different state objects, and it's kicking that off every time it does a unit. So I'm not 100% certain. Like, realistically, I'm going to have to experiment with this one. But if I just add it to that, I don't think it's going to cover all of those cases. So I'd rather keep it clean and then put it together than the other way around. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I think it's gonna like take me focusing on it for a couple of hours to really get it right. But we'll see. I'm not going to be able to do it right now. It's getting to the end of my night. So options. Create new implementation of spawn manager and create unit. Then cough. AI update. Them all as a group, maybe. Or assign all the subsequent unit spawns to the first group. It might actually not be too hard. Yeah, okay. You might have a point. Assign all the subsequent unit spawns to the first group created. Yeah, because that is going to be the leader. We can try both. Yeah, so I think that's where we're living. So we'll try that. Assign all the subsequent unit spawns to the first group created. We'll still have to clean up some bookkeeping, I think, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that works for me. No commit tonight, but at least I've got a plan. Got to sort out these complex problems. Once I've got the complex problems, then we can, start building out the game and all that good fun stuff. But I need these core elements to be in place, otherwise nothing's going to happen. Anyway, I think that'll be me for tonight. Thanks for watching, everyone who dropped on by. I know there's only 3 of you now, but there was a few more before. All right, have a good one.